All right, welcome back to another episode of the Noob Sports Show. I'm your host, Ryan Newple, here with you each and every episode. We appreciate you taking a little bit of your time, tuning in. As you guys know, we like to talk anything in the iGaming space. We like to talk to different people. We like to hear different stories. We like to talk about different trends and things that are coming up. So hopefully you'll enjoy this episode. Today, we have another special guest, as we always do, but today's very special. We have Dan Phillips, the CEO at NEL Advisory, co-host of the Big Betting Balagan podcast. Dan, are you with me?
I am. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for that intro. NEL Advisory. It was sort of named after my kids' initials originally. It was called a few other things, but then I changed it to NEL Advisory. So that's my kind of platform for offering advisory and consulting work. I guess we'll come on to that, but just maybe a little bit of background for your listeners. I mean, I've been around the industry for 25 years, believe it or not. I started in retail casinos, dealing cards, roulette, craps, actually in a basement in Soho in London, if any of you guys know that. So kind of interesting times, but kind of moved online very early when it was all kind of starting. So that was great timing for me in 2001, and launched the first online casino with a company called Eurobet, who are an Italian-facing brand. Just a quick story, kind of going through the history of it, but they were bought soon after that by Coral, who were the major UK bookie, and we launched their online sportsbook, and then we launched casino, and then poker and soft games and skill games followed on after that. Coral then merged with Gala, and Gala are a major retail casino and bingo operator, so we built and launched bingo for them. So I had a role as kind of digital gaming director. Actually, all of those brands are all now part of GVC, part of the GVC empire. So it's all kind of mergers and acquisitions along the way. I then wanted to get into social gaming, and I did sort of 2 or 3 years, splitting my time between California, West Coast Canada, and Europe. And then moved. I was introduced to Playtech. I'm sure many of your listeners know Playtech in 2012. Where I was VP of operations, so running their UK subsidiaries mainly, which included their game studios, or some of the game studios, commercial relationships, product, and third parties. And actually during that time, we launched the products across, all of the country European regulated markets and into LATAM and into Asia as well. So certainly really kind of exciting times. But for the last 2 years, so as you said at the start, with my own advisory, and now I kind of work, on projects by myself, but I have a small group of associates. There are people that I know and trust, across the industry, and we've worked launching people into North America. So what's been happening on, I'm sure that we'll come on to that.
Sure.
As we, as things have opened up. So from whether it be licensing, whether it be product, software, regulatory, but also across Africa as well, which has been really, really interesting. So East and West Coast Africa. Lots of challenges there, but it's been really, really exciting, and also kind of LATAM. So that's kind of what I've been up to. That was 25 years in sort of 3 minutes.
I tell you what, man, you've had some experiences, and what's amazing is you've been kind of around the world. You've been in a lot of different areas and a lot of different pieces of gaming as well, which is amazing. And I'm sure that helps. In any advisory role now, I mean, all that different experience helps that type of role. So I'm sure you're just thriving in your advisory role now. And are you enjoying that role? Is that something that you're really enjoying?
No, for sure. I mean, having been in corporate roles at what is now GVC and Playtech, you can be very much head down, and sometimes you can't look up and see what's out there. So sort of 2 years ago, when I moved into the space, all of a sudden I looked up and thought, wow, there's all these opportunities out there, and obviously the US is kind of one of those. But now I've kind of self-educated myself into new areas. So the reason I kind of kept my career moving on partly was due to where the industry was going, and the timing was right, which I think is probably the same for lots of people. But for me, it was to learn something new. So I've been doing a lot of work around the esports area in terms of looking at the market, looking at the major players, looking at how betting can leverage this. And there's been some big numbers pushed out there from esports, obviously off the back of COVID and the back of lack of sports, but I think that will continue. But other areas as well, which have taken me away from gaming a little bit, but into the areas around fintech and mobile pay and contactless pay. again, kind of areas maybe where new markets, like the US and North America, are maybe a little bit behind maybe where we are in Europe on that. So that's been kind of really, really, really exciting. So if I can keep educating myself, then I find that's the way that I motivate as well.
100%. So let's expand a little bit on the this whole era that we're in right now, because one thing I like to talk to people like yourself about is we had quite a bit, especially in North America, the US market for betting, we had quite a bit of momentum going in the industry until COVID hit, right? And then COVID hit and it seemed like everything kind of shut down or stopped or transitioned into, like you said, esports and maybe some more online casino talk and things like that. But my question is, now that, once we kind of come out of this COVID, shutdown or pandemic, do you think we'll pick right back up where we were as an industry, or do you think it's going to take some time now to kind of get that ball rolling downhill again?
Well, I think if there was a vaccine that was working tomorrow, and everyone was clear, then I think sports would go back to what they were, and give it a month, and everyone would have kind of moved on from this. I don't think that's going to happen. I think anyone thinks that's going to happen. But what will happen is that we'll get to a scenario where stadia are opening up, even if they're at partial capacity, but there'll be maybe 1/3 of capacity. So that will get people back into the stands.
Sure.
Obviously, that will then drive more betting opportunities. But actually, what I think will come out of this, and it isn't the nice part of the industry, but is around the responsible gaming elements of it. So what we've seen, as I mentioned, with the growth in esports, and people have been betting on table tennis, and they've been betting on Belarusian soccer, because it's the only thing which is there, and everyone's saying, "Well, this is fantastic, this is amazing." But I think what it shows is that people are at least as much focused on betting and gaming as they are around following their team. So if you follow your team, and maybe a few years ago you would place your bet because you want to support your team, but actually now it feels like it's actually more about, okay, I need to play. So we're seeing a lot of that certainly in the UK. I'm sure that your listeners have been following what's been going on, with the UK parliamentary committees looking to potentially shut down marketing or significantly reduce it. We have here, I don't know whether you have it in the US actually, but you can't advertise cigarettes, tobacco at all. And if you go into a store in the UK, it's behind a shutter. And that's kind of, I think, where we're going to get to. So I think that will progress into other markets. Now, what will happen after this is that if markets don't regulate quickly enough, or they don't take these factors into consideration, then you'll see maybe a potential further growth in offshore, and people moving to that because they have maybe a sort of wider offering and they're able to advertise that where some others aren't. So this kind of new world that we're talking about, I think won't be what it was, but I think the revenue will still be there, and that growth will return. I guess I mean, question for you, being sort of stateside whereas I'm in Europe, you've only got right now 3 or 4 states that offer iGaming online. Obviously, you've got 15, 16 now with sports, and several are talking about it. But if that doesn't catch up, then I think you are going to see more being pushed offshore. And actually, when they go offshore, then there's less protection for the end consumer. So that's kind of a roundabout way to answer your question, I think.
No, I mean, that whole discussion is fascinating to me, especially, a lot of things I do are with different affiliates and affiliate groups and things of that nature. And, there's this whole, promotion of offshores and promotion of legal U.S. operators and things of that nature. And the one question that always comes into my mind is, when are these offshores going to be completely phased out of the United States, And I don't even think we're close to that yet. I mean, we're just not, unfortunately, we're not close to that point yet, simply because of the fact you just said, where there's only 3 or 4 states that are truly iGaming, capable.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on, I guess, that transition of from offshore to this, and how quickly it could go, or how quickly offshores could go away for the U.S. market?
Well, we had offshore operations in Europe and globally. Actually, that I've worked. I've even worked with some of them. A few years ago, but what we need to get to is a position where the onshore, where the legalized areas have a comparable product set, right? And until you have a comparable product set, people will continue to go and find the best offers.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be an offer in terms of a bonus offer or a VIP offer. It's in terms of the betting options, the best in play, sure. The best wallet options. Why can't I use certain payment solutions? How quickly money is being returned to users, what the KYC process is. We have a scenario now where KYC is 100% needed for the obvious reasons, but now you have to prove where your funds have come from. Now, if you're playing offshore, you don't need to do that. Can you imagine now, Ryan? So you're playing on a UK or a European, operation, and then you get a phone call from the customer service that said, "Hey, Ryan, you just spent like $500. Can you tell me where your money came from?" And you're going to be like, "No way am I telling
None
you
of your
where my
business."
money comes from. Exactly. And if they can't prove where their money comes from, the operator has to suspend their account. Now, what they do behind the scenes before they make that phone call, that they'll do the research, that they check you out on the electoral register, they check you out even on social media. They might even do a Google Globe view of your house. Can this guy afford this? What car has he got parked in his drive? So these are all for the right reasons, that these protections are in place. But actually, what we need to do is to have a dialogue. And at the moment, what you have is, what will come out of COVID is probably an increase in problem gaming statistics. Sure. The governments and then the media especially will jump on this, and they will haul us as an industry over the coals. Yeah. And then knee-jerk changes will happen, probably to the detriment of the end user ultimately, and to the revenue of the operator as well. But ultimately, you just created a poor experience for the end user. So again, they will go offshore. So if we have dialogue as an industry with the end consumer, ask them what they want. And actually, in some cases, they don't know what they want. But anyway, we have to help them evolve, into a safe way of playing. And I think, when you look at like GVC and GameSys and Flutter and some of the big groups, are out there doing this, and now they're promoting their safety features rather than the odds. So I think that's a good thing. But actually, coming out of it, again, how we do this, I think one of the biggest things is going to be digital transformation. Sure. So you have people now who maybe were big retail operations who also had a digital arm, a digital division, and the people in those companies within one company probably didn't talk to each other, right? Yeah. They were probably competing with each other. Actually, I've certainly come across that. But actually, now what they need to do is to leverage a retail brand, to leverage the loyalty that comes with that, and help them do that. Help them have a single wallet across retail and online. Which comes back to the contactless, the fintech. Can you have a balance in your Apple Wallet that you can use in the store and you can use online? And I think that's where I think we will get there. Will it happen in 1 year? Almost certainly not. Maybe 2 to 3 years, maybe. But it's a bit of a crystal ball thing.
Yeah. Some great points there, and you can tell, for the listeners out there, you can tell Dan Phillips, one of the most knowledgeable people in this industry, definitely has a lot of experiences. Man, so good stuff. Hey, I got a question for you. Big Betting Balagan. I keep saying that wrong. Okay. Big Betting Balagan podcast. Okay,
so Big Betting Balagan.
You got to tell me what this is, what you guys talk about, and I'm hoping to join you here soon on your podcast as well. But give the audience a little bit about the podcast, how they can get a hold of you on that.
Thank you for that. So it's the Big Betting Balagan, and we're only sort of 10 episodes into our podcast, so we're not as established as you are. But the word Balagan is actually a Hebrew Yiddish word, and the literal translation is difficult to give a literal translation, but it means kind of craziness, maybe unpredictability, maybe kind of things are up in the air. And it was a phrase that we used a lot during my time at Playtech. Balagan. What's going on? That's a Balagan. In fact, even some Playtech customers, if any listening, will recognize that. So I sort of co-host it with two kind of industry colleagues, Lee Richardson, who's a sports specialist, been around the industry for a long time as well, and Vine Kozacek, who's a tech and cyber security specialist. So we started back in January, and the idea being that there's three of us would talk about the hot topics of the day, and to give it some kind of insight between our experiences from probably between us sort of 60, 70 years of experience between us, from different perspectives, and then discuss it, and we keep it light. There's quite a bit of banter in there, and then we have topics. So we've had speakers on, who are focused just on compliance and regulation. We've had a sort of a couple of US specials. We had Joe Asher, who's the CEO of William Hill USA, on there. We've had technology. We've spoken about compliance. We've spoken about AI and the importance of that. And actually, recently we've kind of looked at sort of maybe some industry veterans as well. So we had Neil Gordon, who's the current chairman of Gamesys Group, and we had Richard Flint, who's the previous CEO of Skybet, now a non-exec at Flutter. Be interested if your viewers and listeners want to check it out. BigBettingBalagan.com. We're in all the podcast places, and happy to have you on, certainly, Ryan, as well. And you can give us your views from running a podcast. How many years now? 5 years, 6 years?
We have been doing it for quite a while. Actually, this will be episode number 101. So we're in the three digits now. So that's a good thing.
Wow. So we can only hope to get there.
Oh, you will. You guys are doing a good.
Episode 11. Episode 11. So we're still finding our feet. And I think actually what I realized quite early on was that we're not professional broadcasters. But actually, I don't think anyone really cares. I mean, maybe we don't have the highest production value, but we certainly, hopefully, it's a good quality listen, and people get something out of it.
A good piece of advice for the people listening. I for the longest time, I was crippled by the fact that I didn't think it was good enough of a podcast, or my production value wasn't good enough or something. And so I just didn't act. I didn't do it. I didn't take action on making it happen, even though I kept like, oh man, I got to do this. I got to do this. And I think that's just one lesson for any entrepreneur, any business owner. Look, it doesn't have to be perfect. Go out there, make your idea happen, and then it will transform as you go into something bigger, better. Yeah. And then you'll look back and be like, man, why didn't I start that 10 years ago when I was really thinking about it and was scared of what people thought? And so I think that's just something that it's not always about the production value. Of course, there's some value in having really good production, but get out there and just make it happen. That's just a good piece of advice, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, what we were finding as well, and actually still do, is that the industry, has lots of news outlets. And I think now I get something like 10, 15, maybe 20 newsletters a day. And they're all kind of the similar story. So it's just trying to give it like a different angle, exactly, as you're doing, getting people on and asking them, for their views.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about sports real quick. I know you're a busy man. I'll get you off here soon, but I'm curious. So U.S. sports, as of this recording, baseball's coming back tonight. NBA's coming back next week. We got all sorts of sports coming back here in the U.S. Do you have a team? Do you have do you watch any of this or care about any of these teams here in the U.S.? I'm curious.
Well, actually, I wasn't sure where you're going with that.
No, it's more of a fan,
fan thing. So listen, I'm a Tottenham Hotspur supporter, right? I don't know whether that means anything to you.
No, it does.
From proper football, as we call it, from the English Premier League. However, when it comes to US sport, I never really got my head around NFL as a sport. Although I understand the
real football. No.
Yeah, okay.
Well, the proper football, real football.
Well, that one where you only use your hands, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
That one. Okay. But I understand the kind of the complexity of it and the strategy of it. But actually, I do like baseball. I've got a soft spot.
Cool.
Having spent some time in sort of California and San Francisco, so there's some teams there, and also the New York guys. But I know that's kind of like saying that you support both sides of something. But actually, some time I spent up in Canada. I was in Calgary quite a bit, and I was following the Flames in the hockey. I found that kind of, those sports that move a little bit quicker. I appreciate maybe baseball isn't the quickest
Yeah.
sports, but certainly that. But yourself, which is your team?
Yeah, for sure. One other question. So, and we talked about this a little bit off the air, but I'm curious your take on the events in this space. So, we have all sorts of events. We have live events. We have virtual events. Have you been enjoying the virtual event format? I know, like I said, we talked a little bit about this, but I'm curious if you could give your input on how these virtual events are going and if they're truly serving a purpose here during this pandemic, or, maybe are we going to stick to these going forward, or will we get back to live events once things settle down?
I think they're serving a purpose right now. Last year I did something like 20 trips last year, most of which included some kind of conference, and some were great and some weren't so great. So they are, even the retail ones are kind of hit and miss. But actually having the ability now to sort of still connect with people, still physically see them, and hear people's views is vitally important. However, for me, what I struggle with a little bit is being able to sort of chat offline with people, to be able to grab. If I saw someone at a trade show, I want to speak to this guy because, I want to sell something, or maybe I want to buy something from them. That's a little bit of the struggle. But actually, there are a lot of people maybe that couldn't necessarily afford to go to all of these trade shows. I mean, it's a big commitment if you want to get to to the US and you want to go to Asia and you want to go to LATAM. I was at ICE Africa last 2 years actually. It's been obviously moved this year to a digital event. That's in Johannesburg, and there are people within Africa, within the continent of Africa, that couldn't go because they weren't able to get visas.
Sure.
Because one country doesn't talk to another country, so they couldn't physically go. And so I think what we'll see after this is probably hybrid events.
Yeah.
So there'll be a retail element, a physical element, and there'll be a digital element.
Mm-hmm.
So people who are offline who can't make it can still watch what's going on and still participate. So I would imagine that that will be the case. I heard that ICE London, which has now been moved from February to April, I think that may have some element of virtual and digital, and I'm interested to see what the G2E guys do come October, when I know that's now been moved to a digital conference. So I think the answer is right now it serves a purpose, but I think it will evolve. But I think we will get back to physical events again, for sure.
Yeah, I love the idea of a hybrid model for sure. Because there are times you just cannot make a trip, but you still want to be a part of it. So I love that idea. But hopefully you and I will be able to sit down at one of these physically, say hello over a coffee or a beer or something. And
that'd be great.
That would be, man, we all love the live events. We just love that, the social piece on top of the learning and the connecting. And there's nothing like connecting in person and just making business happen, nothing like that. So
absolutely.
Awesome. Well, this is Dan Phillips, CEO of NEL Advisory, co-host of the Big Betting Balagan podcast. Dan, any final thoughts for the audience here before we get off here? Anything you'd like to say?
Well, just really just great to see sport coming back globally now. Great to see people getting out and about, and hopefully staying safe, and people are looking to sort of invest. I think now is the time to invest in their technology, to invest in their platforms, to be looking at new markets. And I think some people have said, we're going to kind of hunker down whilst we're having these tough times. But I think actually now there's opportunities to say, when we come out of this, to be on the front foot. So definitely open to people want to contact in terms of new market entry and things like that. I think now is the time to be investing.
Sure. So how would anybody get a hold of you personally or your business if they wanted to reach out or possibly get your advisory services?
Yeah, for sure. So they can do it through the podcast. So it's the bigbettingbalagan.com. You can contact me and my sort of co-host there. My email is dan at neladvisory.com. That's NELADVISORY.com. And actually I have a group of associates as well. So I sort of have my sort of skills as we spoke about earlier, but through the networks we have compliance people, we have marketing, we have operations, and so on and so forth. So we have sort of areas to sort of help and cover most projects.
Awesome. Well, cool. We'll put all those links in the show notes so everybody doesn't have to scramble, write them down. We'll get them in the show notes. But
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Dan, super nice to have you on the show. Thank you for taking a little bit of time and giving some of your insight into this industry from your so much vast experience that you've had. So thank you again.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate your time.
All
Speak soon.
right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. That was Dan Phillips. We appreciate him being here. We appreciate you listening, tuning in, or watching if you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn. We'll have plenty more to come. And in the meantime, head out to the Big Betting Balagan podcast and check out Dan's podcast as well. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon. Stay safe.